Hey everyone, welcome to Comic Book Curation Live. I am Polydub, and as always, joining me, Inquisitor 8.1. Say hi, Quiz.
We're about as on time as Barry Allen.
Okay, we'll get into it. Oh, fine. Jack from Bad Comic Reviews, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, running late. It happens. So I was on the, speaking of being late, I was on one of Monkey's.
You're pregnant?
No. I was on one of Monkey's late night, early morning streams, and he claimed that that could be our shtick, that we're always late. I don't know if I buy that, but I like how it's a ready-made excuse for me.
Monkey, you're such an enabler. Stop it!
I don't think, is it really that bad of an idea that I can just like, what do you mean, guys? We're not late. This is what we do. Our audience expects it at this point.
It's our shtick.
Yeah, that's how we roll, man. So we got our regular group here in chat. Oh, and Jim Healis is here. Hey, Jim, how's it going? The thing I wanted to start today with was, well, I don't know. Should we start with what the title's on or go to something else first? Oh, I know what I want to start on. The image that I used for the thumbnail for today. For those of you who haven't seen the thumbnail, it's out there on Twitter, but we'll be bringing it up in a minute. There it is. Savage Land Rogue. Yeah. I mean, sure, it's pretty clickbaity, but I mean, come on. Look at her.
It's not clickbaity. I mean, look at her athletic toned muscles, the supple heaving of her breasts, that look of like, I will defend you at the same time. Look how saucy I am. There's a lot you can interpret from this image other than I think that's sexually attractive.
Yeah, and she also still has Miss Marvel's powers at this point. So yeah, she could like, you know, fly and rip a telephone pole in half and all sorts of other amazing things.
Except in the Savage Land, I think all mutants lose their powers.
She's stealing everything, including your heart.
But no, hold on. Wolverine heals in the Savage Land at one point.
She's wearing her gloves too. Yeah, you still have your mutant powers.
They do? I
could
have sworn that there was a whole story that dealt with Xavier being able to go down to the Savage Land because he could walk and he wasn't overwhelmed by his extremely potent psychic powers.
I think the real issue here is that you think there's X-Men continuity and it's strong.
Well,
Claremont left 20 years ago, buddy.
Okay, good point.
Well,
speaking
the reason why I wanted to use Savage Land Rogue.
The origin of Savage Land Rogue is X-Men 269, and it actually it was a Chris Claremont, I believe Jim Lee. Wasn't it? I think it was.
It is definitely Jim Lee. There is the first appearance of Savage Land Rogue. You can tell this is a little bit earlier in Jim Lee's style. Everything's not quite as defined. But yeah, it's definitely a Jim Lee. Whether it's Chris Claremont,
it was written by Chris Claremont, penciled by Jim Lee, inkers by Art Thibert, colors by Steve Buccelio, letters Tom Warzotsky and Tomoko Saito, editors Bob Harris and Susan Gaffney.
Yeah, you see, this was the one of the Rogue costume redesigns you see her with here on the cover. And what happens is she ends up getting deposited in the Savage Land, and her costume is very much torn asunder, which is why she ends up looking like that, like wearing tatters of her original costume.
I like that uniform better.
Do you? I mean, her like that comic is from 1990. And it's amazing to me how well that image of Rogue as Savage Land Rogue has held on. I mean, there are people like, I mean, this is a deviant art picture that somebody did. Here's another one, super sexy topless Rogue, but everything's still covered. That's important. But people are still to the day redrawing this. This one's from 2015.
I think that's an actual comic artist.
No, is it?
Yeah. Fuck. Hold on. The signature looks familiar. I think he does covers.
Oh, I thought it was a DeviantArt image.
Well, it is, but
if it was a DeviantArt image, it would have Sonic in there, and somebody would be pregnant. That's not.
Where's the Sonic recolor? Right? Yeah, the inflation.
Yeah.
This is my original character. Do not steal, Polly.
What kill? What kills me, like I said, is that here it is 2015. I mean, it's decades later, and this character holds on. Now, there's lots of sexy images of different comic book heroines and superheroes and stuff, but this one seems to have this bizarre staying power that I find interesting, and that's why I picked her for the thumbnail. I mean, here's a modern sculpt of her for those who want to get into really high-end sculpts for painting and stuff. And again, so I asked these guys before we started streaming, what is it about this particular image of her in the Savage Land and not any other character? Because Storm appears with tattered clothing on and they don't do it for her. Lots of superheroes have had extremely sexy images. Psylocke during her Asian period with her little sexy ninja onesie that was a thong still doesn't have the staying power of Savage Land Rogue, who appeared like that in what, 3 issues only?
No, this is an anti-Asian bias against the beautiful and lovely Psylocke.
Is that what's going on?
Yes.
Well, she's not even the Asian Betsy Braddock anymore.
No, she's not. She's
because that was too problematic.
This is transracialism.
Yeah, and she was all Rachel Dolezalling, and I thought it was sexy, and people get all bent out of shape and butt hurt. Whatever.
No. Pop-Tart says, oh, it just happened to rip up into a sexy outfit. No, that's not what happened. It got ripped asunder, period, and she took the tatters and turned it into a loincloth and top. Like, that's all that was left over.
Mm-hmm.
You see.
Yeah, she's got to cover her fun bits.
Oh, no. I think I might have found a good tab for you there, Polly. From ultimatecomiccon.com, In General Nerd, published November 14th, 2017. Badly executed. The 15 most offensive X-Men costume changes ever.
Link me.
Well, if they're not wearing a burqa, they're probably offensive. So,
well,
even that could be offensive. So it happened to Dusk.
The one that pisses me off right here is, and I guess I would kind of agree with them, is the Vampire Jubilee. Fuck you, Marvel. Anyway, here I'll read the relevant bit.
Okay.
Rogue goes native. Rogue is another X-Man that has recently changed over the years. She started as the quiet, sullen girl, dealing with her guilt about stealing Miss Marvel's powers. She ended up being a loud and proud fighting machine for Xavier's ideas. Along the way, she got a few new costumes, but her most offensive look is when she had almost no costume at all. During her time in the Savage Land, Rogue became the poster child for X-Men Cheesecake as she tries to survive in the inhospitable land. She strips and tears her clothing until she is basically running around in green and yellow bikini. It's undoubtedly a classic look, one recreated by enthusiastic cosplayers every year, but it's also the main example of the X-Men books peddling skin in order to sell the book, which is a pretty bad look for the series.
Or awesome.
Just to be clear, that writer claims that every cosplayer is offensive that's doing Rogue, Savage Land Rogue.
Yeah.
That they're all offensive. Okay.
Why you got a problem with the Whammons cosplaying, huh?
What's the issue?
Yeah. What's wrong? Yeah.
Hang on, I would like to point out some scantily clad stuff that they're overlooking. Look at this guy. Look at that. They are so sexually objectifying him.
Tarzan is just checking his privilege. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, can you believe that? Like, they're highlighting his junk, and this girl's wearing more clothes than he is. And what? You know, that's probably a phallic reference too. Oh, they're so objectifying this poor man. And that's
But
from, like,
I mean, let's just repeat the
1977.
conversation in the way that it goes, that we know that it goes, right? Is that this is objectification of women, and they're, is it using X-Men turning into X-Men cheesecake and using skin to sell comics. And it's like, yeah, sexy women are sexy. Shock. They're supposed to be superheroes, thus peak physical specimens. So it's like, oh my God, they're, body shaming me by me having to behold this body that I don't have. And it's like, no one's really supposed to have these bodies. They're supposed to be peak physical specimens. A rare person indeed would look like them. That's the whole point. And then the response is, well, men look like that. What are you talking about? This isn't something that's being done against women. The response to that, hey, that's part of patriarchy too. You're being objectified too. And it's like, you know what? You think a whole lot about fictionalized naked people.
Well, I mean, this guy's dead too, and look what they're doing to him.
Objectifying the dead. Oh,
objectifying the corpse. God.
Not only are they undead shaming, they are also body shaming him with his delightful abs and magical powers. It's sick. It's sick, I tell you.
Yeah, and how well is that body proud comic Faith doing?
Still shampooing along.
The plump superhero, for those of you who don't know.
I'm not positive. It's body positive.
Body positive, that's right. Yeah. I'm not saying anybody that's not in shape should feel bad about their body. Obviously. It's just, again, they're superheroes. They're supposed to be in, a great number of them are supposed to be in peak physical shape. Like what? I don't understand the beef. And it's like, well, this is idealized and presents unrealistic standards. The people with superpowers are your idols that you're trying to live up to. That makes no sense. It's supposed to be fantasy. What aren't you cluing into here? Both the men and the women. Anyway, an ongoing frustrating thing for me. And I will not hide my shame that I think Savage Land Rogue looks sexy as hell. And can we not forget the one thing? Her regular costume covers her entire body, because Rogue's powers, if she touches anybody, she absorbs their powers or their memories if they don't have any powers. And it's a dangerous process for her to touch anyone. It's
not just their memories too. It steals part of their life.
Right. And what happens if she holds on them too long? Don't they die?
Yeah. Well, she nearly killed her high school crush. Puts him in a coma.
So the way they covered it in Mephisto Verses is that she's actually stealing part of their soul temporarily, and then it returns to them.
Spoiler! You pitched that already. Don't spoil it.
I didn't spoil anything.
But I didn't spoil it. It was actually it was actually a really cool twist inside of Mephisto. That was a well-written idea. Why would Mephisto need Rogue? And he becomes like one of the central chess pieces in his big gambit to do what he wants to do. And it's like, why Rogue of all people? It's actually very clever. It's an interesting point of writing, I thought.
Well, don't ruin it for him.
Well, I didn't mention a certain person that with things and stuff. So, anyway.
Real fast, Polly. Can you go back to that one picture of Rogue that you had that I said that was a comic book artist?
Second one with the boobies.
With the boobs, yeah.
Sexy bathing Rogue? Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Look at that face, that immodest face of I'm a giant hoe.
Okay.
So is that what that face is supposed to be saying? I think she's more shocked at the giant snake she didn't see that was there that's coming down on her.
Oh, well, I figured she was peeing in the water.
If you look at that signature there, you can see quite clearly it's Fred, right?
I read it as Reed, R-E-I-D, but sure, Fred. Okay, I can see
Fred, the kid from YouTube from years ago.
No.
Talks funny.
If you backtrace that image, you backtraced it. Consequences will never be the same. You will find out that it's from a DeviantArt account, yes, for a man named Fred Benes, B-E-N-E-S.
Oh my God, that guy does all the sexy images on.
Well, I was gonna say callback. Yeah, he did Witchblade.
It all circles together.
Which connects very nicely because last week's thumbnail had Sarah Pazzini on it, the possessor of Witchblade. See,
is this going to be a thing? Do we have to tie all the thumbnails together or something?
Not
that
at all.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It happened to connect, so I thought, what the hell? So he actually is a pro. There you go. That's my I'm about to be sexually assaulted by a massive snake face. Peter, you're the only one that saw anything sexual about that image.
Yeah, there was nothing sexual about that.
No.
It was just some girl gently cleaning herself in a pool of water in the glistening light of the savage land.
That's right.
She will be savage.
Oh, yeah. See, no, that was another thing I wanted to point out. Okay, so Rogue's regular costume covers her from head to toe, including gloves. And she's even got like a little like collar neck thing. So the only thing exposed is just her face and chin. That's it. So she goes to Savage Land. It's hot as hell, man. It's an arid, dry climate and then jungle climates. Is it really so surprising that she'd win? It's like, oh, the article that you read where she's like pretty much going around in a yellow and green bikini, as opposed to what? A fucking a skin diver's wetsuit? Like, of course she went with very little. It's hot as fuck there.
If she was wearing her full body coverings and she's a free bleeder, that could get really stanky.
Well, thanks for the input, Jack. That was Jesus. Okay, so that suddenly became an unsexy image. Let's move on to another subject now. Good.
Yeah, became an unsexy image. Whatever.
Let's talk about everyone's every comics gator's best friend here, Mark Waid. What a great guy he is. For those of you who don't know, Mark Waid is longtime comic book pro, comic book writer who what's the fastest way to tell this story? He's an anti-comics gator. He figures everybody in comicsgate is a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe, Islamophobe, all of the things. And came very much out with this position. He may have held it for a long time, as he said, but then came out very much against your boy Zach, Richard Meyer from Diversity in Comics. This guy became the bane of Mark Waid's existence. Would that be fair to say?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Spent a lot of time complaining about all of the things that were going on online, and you're just against trans creators and POC creators. And Mark Waid kind of put himself out there as the defender of POC creators and trans creators and marginalized community creators. He was throwing around all the buzzwords for a good long time, and he was angry about it, very hostile about it.
One thing I've got to bring up for that, though, just a quick aside. Why can't the pox defend themselves?
It is very infantilizing. I agree.
No, see, this is part of Manifest Destiny. You have to use your white man's burden to go out and defend those who you see as weaker than you. So clearly they can't defend themselves because they are inferior.
Okay.
That's how he seems to see it, based on what I've read of his tweets.
Well, remember the whole thing, the weak, the strong protect the weak.
Yeah. Yeah, and
it's like,
the
strong call all people of color weak and trans people weak, and they need you, strong white man, to defend them. That's weird, man. Did you even think about that before you started tweeting about it? And no, he didn't, because in the Twitterverse, nothing is real. It's all a very strange.
Well, he may have spent a lot of time thinking about it and thinking about his superiority and how much better he is than everybody around him. And he's like, as a middle-aged frumpy white dude, I have a lot of power, and it's my job to take these lesser mortals and try and elevate them closer to my greatness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he thinks that way, but it de facto ends up becoming how it comes across. It's like, don't you realize there's a lot of weirdness? The whole hashtag not your shield thing, like, that's something that should be explained to people that have the thinking of Mark Waid, where the strong protect the weak. And it's like, do you realize how infantilizing that is? They're not your shield. Every time you type in LGBT POC, you're using a group of people as your shield to be able to make claims and denouncements of individuals. And if you disagree with me, you're attacking these people, hence they're your shield. And it's weird, man.
The
legitimate Pac. In any case, one of the big claims that was going against comics gators in general, specifically against Richard Meyer, was, well, if you don't like what's going on in comics, then why don't you go make your own? And so they did. And it's the salt that came out of that was immense. Mountains and mountains of mined salt. What is it? Is it up to $2 million now worth of independent comics sold related to Comicsgate?
Way more.
Like it's between Ethan Van Sciver and Richard Meyer alone, they're at 1.5 million. Like it, and this is the idea. You don't like what we're doing, then go do something else. Okay, we will. Mark Waid's response:
"Stop it! You're being successful."
Yeah, and he was not willing to just say stop it. He tried to stop it. Your boy Zach, Richard Meyer, had his comic ready to go. It was on the final night of the Indiegogo, where it was like counting down to when the project was closed, and these various last minute donations are coming in, or purchases rather, are coming in. And he announces that Antarctic Press of Texas is going to be publishing the comic because he wanted to go with a publisher and not self-publish. As soon, and Antarctic Press, everyone's like, "Oh wow!" And Antarctic Press tweets out, "We will be publishing the comic. We are, we've reached an agreement." Mark Waid makes a phone call, and this is where everything gets murky. Mark Waid claims that I made a phone call, but I didn't threaten anybody. People descended upon Antarctic Press about like, how are you publishing this alt-writer? He's a white nationalist. You guys are racist and you're supporting a racist. Mark Waid said all he did was describe the kind of problems that this would cause. The issue is he talked about on Twitter what he did. He talked about at Comic-Cons when he was on panels what he did. And how he pressured them by, the comics community will not accept this and so forth. A few months go by and Richard Meyer slaps him with a tortious interference, a contractual interference lawsuit. Mark Waid's in a real bad spot now.
Because he's a dumbass and rambled on in an interview, and he got a recording from a con of somebody asking him questions, and he's blabbed about it on social media. So he's just an idiot.
And and sorry for the whole background there for those of you who already know this story. But like, that's the basic TLDR of what happened. It's been going on for a while, but the lawsuit just came out, and it's kind of a big deal because it is a great reminder, a bucket of cold water, that Twitter isn't real, guys. You can't do what you do on Twitter in the real world, and it doesn't matter. It matters. When you try and take on what's happening, the battles on Twitter, and everyone's a Nazi, everyone's this. When you make a claim like this guy is affiliated with white nationalist groups, which is what Mark Waid said about Richard Meyer, that's an actionable claim because it's a statement of fact. It's not a question of your opinion. I think this guy's an asshole. You're saying he is affiliated with white nationalist groups. Okay, that's defamatory. You go ahead and try and prove that, because I'm going to hit you up with a lawsuit in terms of slandering my name in this way. And it's Mark Waid can't say he didn't say that, because he absolutely did. This is what happens when you spend, in my opinion, what happens when you spend too much time on social media and hyperbole becomes the order of the day, and you get used to operating in this bizarro world where somebody you don't like becomes a Nazi. Somebody whose policies you disagree with becomes a fascist. Worse than Hitler becomes a phrase in common use. It's like those things will start when you don't leave that Twitterverse, that sewer, very often. That thinking starts to transfer over to the real world, where, in my opinion, you start to think you can get away with that IRL, and you can't.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if Waid is going to bring up, when asked for proof about, your boy Zach's affiliations with white nationalists, if he's just going to sit there and say, "Well, someone else told me." Well, it doesn't work, Mark. It doesn't work because you're the one that said it. You're the one that said it to someone who could actually, have an impact on not only, Meyer's reputation, but also his livelihood. Those sorts of things have real world consequences. It doesn't matter if someone gave you the wrong information if you spread it.
The trouble with it is that, if you watch Rakita Law's video on it, he does a good job of explaining it, that there's more difficulty there, because you, in the sense of defaming somebody, you have to know what you said is not true, and to prove that they knew it wasn't true makes it difficult. like makes proceeding with that difficult. And as Rakita points out, it's more likely that the slander aspect of the lawsuit is to bolster the contractual interference aspect of the lawsuit. Thus, they're being joined together. Because like this guy, it's not like he thought very highly of me and just had a friendly tea time conversation with the people at Antarctic Press. No. He thought very badly of this guy, Richard Meyer, slandered him publicly, called him all of these various things, and then called Antarctic Press to interfere with his contract. And it cannot be made more clear. Mark Waid had nothing to do with Antarctic Press. He had nothing to do with Richard Meyer's comic. Like, this is like a third-party guy coming in from the outside saying, I don't want this happening. This is all going to stop right now. It's like, what? Who the hell are you? What are you doing? And it goes in the face so strongly of the claim that would happen for so long. If you don't like what we're doing as comic pros, then fuck off and make your own comics. Okay, we will. And the response is, well, I don't like that you're making your own comics. I'm going to come in there and stop it. Like, well, fuck you, man. So it was all just talk up until now then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's Wade's foolish enough to go and blab, but he seems to have gotten some legal advice since then. So
Jim says a comicsgater trash talked me to one of my artists behind my back. That sucks.
Who did it?
Whoever did, disavow, because let's put it this way, man. To me, it's not about tribalism. It's not about if you're with us, you're with us. If you're not with us, you're against us. That is the sort of shit that I was hoping that Comicsgate wouldn't be about. This sort of thing, and it's hard to say that there are some people, even the people that you really like and want to support and that kind of stuff, can mess up from time to time. I'm a fairly liberal person. I can understand why one of the YouTube pundits on Twitter, Sofane, gets so pissed off when some people sit there and say things like, all the liberals, libtards, leftists, liberal, leftard, left liberal, leftard retards. I can understand it because it definitely grates on you. I thought that the whole idea was the fact that it wasn't about politics. None of it was supposed to be about politics. It was just about wanting people to respect customers. And the people that don't respect customers are the ones that, you sit there and say, okay, well, I'm not going to buy your books. You don't want me to buy your books. I'm not going to buy your books. And this is, it's zealots, man. It's zealots. I hate zealots, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're in everything.
Well, you've also got a lot of people that are kind of casual fans, and they're probably low information people that are just kind of passively watching this stuff occasionally. And of course they're going to generalize because they don't know the specifics. Yeah. And that's, I think, a large part of what you're dealing with when you see people say stuff like that, where they're using broad sweeping generalizations, because they don't have the nuance to work with, because they don't have the time or energy or care to really go in and look at the detailing and get the fine nuance.
That's a problem, because I think that more so than anything else, the rise of social justice, the prevalence of the tribalism involved in every single aspect of all of this, and not just comic books, but in all of the sort of political and social punditry that we've been dealing with for a very long time, is the fact that there are some people that it's the rule of day for them to do what is called contempt prior to investigation.
Well, that's a good phrase.
That is one thing that I have absolutely tried to avoid my entire life. I never want to be that asshole, and it's frustrating to see when people that are supposedly trying to use something that you yourself have used to sit there and say, well, this is about not wanting to take the bullshit of people not respecting the consumer, and say, well, if you're not with us, you're against us. That's
yeah, but you're always
and Jim Healis has joined us in chat. Hey Jim, how's it going?
Hey, I am sick as shit, so I probably sound terrible.
Did you get the con crud?
Yep.
Yeah.
So first things first, how are things going behind the scenes with Mamba? How goes the fulfillment and everything?
The books are on the truck as we speak, on their way here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping they'll be here by no later than Friday.
Nice.
Everything else is here and ready to be put together. So once the books get here, I'll start bagging and boarding everything and start shipping out as fast as I can.
Sweet. Are we going to get a picture on Twitter like Zach did when everything arrived in boxes? The exciting picture of opening the box. That'd be cool.
You know,
see that.
I saw that picture, and I'm like, he got ripped off on shipping.
Oh, really?
Really looked a little.
Oh yeah.
Because overpacked, underpacked.
Because every one of those boxes had a shipping label on it.
As opposed to one giant unit ship.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if it came as a pallet and they ended up putting a label on every box, but what I saw in the picture looked like they shipped the boxes individually.
Oh, that would be awful. That'd be a nightmare. Yeah, batch shipping is the way to do it. Yeah.
That would be outrageous in shipping because like I used Ready Comics out of Arizona and they threw everything on a pallet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it cost me like $180 in shipping.
Really?
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah. Zach said they came in what was it, UPS or was it FedEx? That it was the side of one truck all on separate boxes.
If it was FedEx, yeah, so they shipped each box separately.
Ooh.
Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know what he paid on shipping, so I all I can comment on is what I saw in the picture, but
I do know that like UPS, when you do batch printing like that, it's all part of the same batch, but they print individual labels. It's really weird and backwards the way that they do it.
Yeah, but if you're not palletizing, then they charge per item.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's a completely different sort of kettle of fish when you go from freight to individual shipping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But congratulations on everything being on its way. That's a big step.
Yes,
I'm excited for it.
I know. I'm
Are
definitely
you
looking forward.
A mock-up of it yet, or when they arrive, is that going to be the first time you see your stuff in glossy?
No, I already got proofs like a couple weeks ago, and then I had 100 books printed to take to New York with me.
All right.
And those were industry only. I take that back. I sold 2 of them. Just because the people the people I was talking to, I told them about the book and everything like that, and they really, really wanted it. And I was just going to give it to them because, I'm kind of a friendly guy like that. And they're like, no, here, take money.
Okay.
So, all right, hand me money.
How did NYCC go for you?
I'm not going back to New York Comic Con unless I'm tabling.
Okay.
Wow.
If that tells you anything. I did not get to spend nearly as much time with the people I wanted to spend the con with. Getting from one end of the con floor to the other end of the con floor could easily take you a half an hour. I think I said in chat earlier, one day in the process of getting 2 autographs, and going through CGC for both of them, I spent 4.5 hours in line.
Oh God!
What?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous, man. Like in Chicago, I don't think I've ever waited in line more than maybe 15 minutes.
Well, and the big line. The big lines in that sense were the CGC booth. And some of the CGC rules that were going on during the show were kind of screwed up too. So they had a table down in Artist Alley, or they had a booth down in Artist Alley and a booth up on the exhibitor floor, and you couldn't get a witness to go to the other floor. So like if I open an invoice, for Signature Series down in Artist Alley, because the artist was down there, and then the other signature I needed was up on the exhibitor floor, they wouldn't let you do that. I mean, I got them to do it through some finagling and bitching about it, but their rule was
last time I was in O'Hare Airport. This is a terrible story.
This is
well, O'Hare
Airport. The con is too big for me personally.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, it's so weird because like I've heard people talk about San Diego Comic-Con is the big one. Talking about how they wait in line for like 6 hours. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Yeah. I have never waited more than 15 to 20 minutes at C2E2, and C2E2 is a fucking huge convention up here in Chicago. In McCormick Place, it's huge. And also Wizard World in Rosemont is another just massive convention. But I don't think I've ever waited more than 15 minutes. When I met and got my prints and my hardcover Harley Quinn #1 hardcover trade Harley Quinn #1 signed by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, I think I waited a grand total of 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
That's why I don't get autographs.
There were lines at the con that you could absolutely just zip through really quick. But like I got a autograph from Francesco Mattina. And easily spent an hour and a half in that line.
Oh, jeez.
Now, when I went to conventions back in the day, back in the 90s, when it was a huge deal to get like someone's autograph, I waited like 5 minutes to get John Byrne's autograph. And the line was huge. But he was just like, all right, no talking, no eye contact, just give me your book and I'll sign it. Fuck off. That's how you do it. You want to talk, you want to go buy something.
Yeah, they had to stop Tom King from doing sketches on the books.
Oh, jeez.
Because the line was so long.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. They have bad management if that's how long it's taking to do stuff.
Well, no, because it's just the sheer volume of people that were there.
Yeah.
I mean, for that Mattina line, I showed up 30 minutes before the signing session was supposed to start, and there was already over 100 people in the line.
That's insane.
It's weird.
So it's just the sheer volume of people. That's all it was.
Like, going back to the one with Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, when I met them, there was easily...
Quit dropping names, Quiz.
There was easily like 50 something people there when I met them, and I sat there and asked them. I talked with them for a little bit while they signed stuff. But I'm one of those guys. I don't like taking pictures with people. Like when I went to MythCon and met a whole bunch of the internet shitlords, I didn't get any pictures. You've got Eve, who got pictures and posted them on Twitter. You got Skeptalk and Sanguine all had pictures taken. I didn't take any. I was content with just talking with Jeremy Hambley and saying, "Hey, would you like to come on Minions one night?" Sitting there talking with some black guy after Adam ran into him while he was drunk, and sit there and had a conversation with him. But I'm not one of those guys that likes to impose. So if I'm waiting in line to get a signature, I'll sit there and say, "I really like your stuff." If they're open to it, shake their hand and ask them like one quick question and say, "Cool. I met," I say to myself, "I met him. Cool." And I leave. I don't understand how people, like waste so much time doing stuff like that. It just seems so strange to me.
So before you came on, Jim, we were talking about the Mark Waid thing. And you said in chat you'd only found out about this last weekend. Is that what you're referring to? The whole lawsuit and all that rigmarole?
No.
No. Do you know about this situation?
I knew about the situation. I've loosely followed it since it happened.
Okay. Okay, one of the things that I think is somewhat interesting, and the why Mark Waid goes straight is the title of this video, because one of the things I think it's pure speculation on my part, but I think it's kind of telling that if you look at Mark Waid's revamped Twitter account now that I'm presenting here, it is like one would think that a comics book creator, a longtime comics book creator's page would look. Is
Oh yeah.
Like it's just comics. It's just comics. Like there's nothing. Like his previous account was Trump this, GOP that, creators,
Someone's doing it for him. I swear.
And that was it's just speculation on my part, but this just screams you have a service or individual that this is rehabilitation on social media in terms of his image. There's nothing but his old stuff, and it's like Kingdom Come, page 28, and then the next one is Birthright number 5, page 1. Like, it's just stuff he's worked on, and very friendly, and he's retweets. Like there's nothing personally from him, you can tell, because there's no anger or denouncement or anything. This is not.
Yeah, there's nothing. Like, every now and then, he pops up with something.
And is it? Like in scrolling through it, I'm just like and he's not running a block bot or anything like that, because I was blocked on his previous account and I'm not blocked on this one.
I think whoever's got this now is like some intern at some promotional company that works for Marvel, and they do this with a couple people, I think. So every now and then he manages to guess the password, squirts out a tweet, and then they like, oh fuck, he's done it again, so we got to change it.
I think that this speaks volumes. There's Mags Visaggio, which, with a lesson I learned well from Mark Waid, this tweet is unavailable. And this is from today, and it's like, Mags, you had something from back in the day, and by back in the day I mean like 90 days ago or whatever it was. And now it's like, well, that's a hell of a lesson that nobody will ever get to know, because Mark Waid nuked everything that could be associated with this lawsuit. Again, in my opinion, speculation. It seems very rehabilitatory, everything that's going on right now.
Well, and that's what I would expect from a pro. I mean, I like a couple of weeks ago went on my Twitter and said, look, one's personal, one's business. If you want to know about the comic and what I do with the comic, go follow that one. If you follow my personal account, you're probably going to get offended.
Yeah.
That's an odd mix in
I'll be honest,
book circles, where people will have like their company and different books that they've worked on and who they're currently associated with, and then all this stuff about their political views or what have you.
I'll be honest, I've actually considered going to my personal account and blocking everybody and then unblocking everybody so that it clears out my followers list. Not to be rude to anybody, because I don't want to be that way, but I don't want people inadvertently following my personal account that are really looking for the comic book stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
Because I will say something that you won't like. I just will.
Yeah, the funny thing about Richard Pace is he has more than one account, and he'll say, follow my other account, or go onto this for social media if you don't want to see all the Canadian stuff.
Yeah,
he's Canadian, and he writes tweets a lot about Canadian politics and different things that are going on and social stuff in Canada. And that's the distinction you make, Pace? Like the national origin of the politics you're talking about? Like you don't make any separation between here's my professional self and here's my political views or personal stuff, like tweeting at aunts and uncles and stuff. Like, no, it's like, in case you don't want to hear the Canadian stuff, I'll keep that over here. Like, really? Okay. So what, if you don't mind me asking, a core comic skater ended up talking about just smack about you.
Yes.
And because you had said some bad things about comicsgate, so basically you weren't down for the cause enough?
So a long time ago in a group chat, I said, I understand why the other side can perceive comicsgate as a hate group because of a few bad actors. Okay. Because like you were mentioning earlier, like the zealots.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's a very controversial statement you made just there. And I mean that sarcastically because
and
yeah,
that
of
was
course, right?
that was the core of the discussion that I was having in this group chat.
Right.
And I happened to notice this core comicsgate person talking to one of my artists at New York Comic Con, and I'm like, oh hey, are you so and so? I thought I recognized you. I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh hey, you know, I'm Jim Healis, Blue Mamba. He's like, oh yeah, Blue Mamba. You know, well, and then I said, well, you know, I got to run. I'll leave you guys to your conversation. I come back a little bit later, and my artist is like, yeah, as soon as you left, he started trash talking you, saying how you were saying bad things about their Comicsgate group. And so I explained to my artist what had happened, and he laughed. He's like, why would they? I mean, he just thought it was so silly. Like the whole thing was silly.
Yeah.
I think comic skaters are looking for enemies at this point because there's so many. It's a target-rich environment that it's like. But I mean, Quiz called it like tribalism, and that's not the goal. The goal is it's not the goal. To you know, you have to speak loudly and proudly of Comicsgate at all times. No, there's as if there aren't bad actors who are. Yeah, I legitimately believe there's people that threaten Mags Visaggio and like legit threatened her. If I ever see you, I'm gonna blah blah blah. Okay. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not a good idea.
And those people may not have anything to do with a Comicsgate group except for them saying, I am Comicsgate.
Yeah. Problem with a hashtag movement.
And because they do that, other people will perceive the whole group as a hate group.
Yeah, as like that. Yeah, that's very true. Whatever has happened to the idea of whatever I may be interested in, whatever I may support, no matter what, I speak for myself. You know, whatever happened to that notion? Because now it seems like everyone's sitting there saying, well, whatever you say is going to reflect on everyone else.
Well, that's part of group identity. I mean, when you're playing identity politics, you're going to have collectives like that. And regardless of whether or not somebody is actually part of the group, if they say they're stamped with the identity of it.
Yeah.
And that's not always legitimate or fair. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But people are individuals, and one individual can make an entire group look bad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I mean, okay. And this is the problem that I see a problem that I see too many discussions going down into. Well, here's this person who said this thing on Twitter. And it's like, yeah, and here's this person who sent someone their asshole on Twitter. Are we going to do this all day? Because it'll go on infinitely.
Yeah.
Bad actor who said bad thing, bad actor who said bad thing.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be bad actors. You can't get away from it.
And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so in my comment, because that's really all that I can truly speak about, in my comment was just about those bad actors, you know, and the perception that there could be. Not that I called it. Nowhere in that conversation did I say specific person is a bad actor or that specific person said something bad. Just that I have the ability to look at this from the outside and go, all right, I can see their point.
Yeah, and you didn't say anything unreasonable. That's perfectly reasonable assessment of the situation.
That's not even it is. That's not even talking smack about Comicsgate. I mean, you want to talk about like, go look at Ren Famous's Twitter account. That's talking bad about Comicsgate. Yeah. Like it's every single tweet multiple times a day. Like it's just.
I think what got me the most out of that was, out of the interaction that happened over the weekend was, okay, well, you aren't know better than the other side that you complain about.
Right.
If you are willing to talk trash about me behind my back to someone that you consider a friend, okay, because they're friends or have some sort of professional relationship, I don't know. If you're willing to do that, then you are just as bad as a Mark Waid and willing to trash talk someone else so that they can't get work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty despicable behavior.
Yeah, I hate when the sort of that sort of thing is used as a bludgeon too. Like they'll use the growing popularity of comicsgate and stuff like that, and use it as a bludgeon to sit there and say, well, I don't like Jim, so I'm gonna use the following and say, well, if you're not with us, you're against us. And did you know that Jim is bad because he's not with comicsgate? And it's so petty. It's so fucking petty. Oh, I hate hearing stuff like this, man. I really do.
What bugs me about it is if it happens more, it's going to do nothing but push me away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to push a lot of people away. That's how movements die.
Well, it already has. People have already started turning away from it.
Yeah.
And I take it back. I think that a lot of people early on staked their position based on their beliefs, and early on we had a very loose alignment in comicsgate, and some people just kept moving towards the ideology while other people just stayed with what they started with. And I think I'm one of the people that just stayed with what they started with. I just.
Well, there's a lot of different personality types in this because it is a consumer movement. You're got a lot of different people that want to take it in different directions, and they're all kind of just linked with one or two things. And eventually either things change or people just try and force it into something they want to control in their direction.
Well, then you know what? Stop calling it comicsgate.
Well, they should have done that to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen so many people say, "Oh, we need to maintain the name," and it's like, no, you don't.
No, I think it's outgrown its name. There's too many cliques now that are trying to use it, and then you got your infiltrators like Vox Day and people like that are trying to use it for their purposes. So yeah, I mean, it's as a movement of whatever kind, it's kind of run its course and it's become something different now.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a good point. I think that from now on, the thing that's more important than the name or trying to call anything by any sort of name is the actions of the people that are acting in it. If you do something like this guy did to Jim, you're a piece of shit. It doesn't matter if you're using comicsgate or not.
Well, yeah, it's just gatekeeping, and that's exactly what they're supposed to be fighting against.
Yeah, and so, you've got some other people that, regardless of whether or not you're getting into the politics or the social circles within it, you just want to support stuff that you like. Then it doesn't really matter if you call yourself comicsgate or not.
There was somebody actually at New York Comic Con that asked where the comicsgate booth was.
Wow, were you like Vox Days over there?
I was taken aback by that because it's like, what? Wait, what?
Oh, hey, normie, get out. This is a comic convention.
Monkey and I had this extended discussion on this general topic about, like, we spent, like, I realize, okay, you, Jim, don't spend as much time immersed in this stuff, and it's probably better for your mental health. You don't, and deleterious to our mental health that we do. I'm happy I got a day job. Let me put it that way.
I got a day job, and all I do is crawl in my own brain about it.
We are so steeped in this stuff that it seems bigger than it is. The majority of comic book purchasers do not know what comicsgate is. And is that not the point of comicsgate? And I'm not trying to get back to a primitive, real, originalist comicsgate. I mean, the idea is to put pressure on the industry to stop producing bad comics and acting as if the fans, the people that are purchasing, need to be talked to in a certain kind of way. That they need to be, and it's not just about, oh, they're calling us Nazis or doing it because they don't agree with it. It's like, it's more like we have a higher ideology. We have an ideology to begin with, and we're going to get a bunch of like-minded people around us, and we're all going to produce comics in this one particular way. It was one of the issues I wanted to bring up with this Vox Day article on Bleeding Cool. That's baffling. It's so long. It's got to be 4 times the length of any other article on Bleeding Cool, and it just talks about, oh my God, it runs on so many tangents and bunny trails and stuff. But near the end, it gets to this statement that's become so overused and trampled on and worn out of, but comics have always been political. Yeah, I know. Captain America punched Hitler. I know. But that's not the point. The point is that it's all politics in one direction. It's one kind of politics that are coming out. Comics became very progressive. Replacement theory is a thing. It can be pointed out to be that way. And if you don't like it, then you must be opposed to the ideas that we're claiming to represent by doing this. Comicsgate as a group of elites on a given collection of YouTube channels that are associated with each other, and you better not say anything bad about us. Hey man, if you guys, that's running a social club online, and I don't know anything about that. The idea is for indie creators and other creators to be able to produce things and not call names, and for the big two, I guess Image as well, Boom, Dark Horse, all of them, to get the idea that because you and your clique think this way doesn't mean you can endlessly promote it and get woke, go broke, because it's not going to sell that well because of it, and it doesn't mean everyone else is Nazis. I mean, that's the core of Comicsgate in my mind. What happened with you was some, I don't know, some guy telling you can't sit at his cafeteria table because you're not cool. Like,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want.
That's a really damn good analogy. I like that. It's my table.
You know, something I got told this past weekend too is, and I think this is kind of a prevalent opinion amongst the people who do cons. They don't care. I mean, if you're spending your money with them, they don't care what your viewpoints are. These people are very capitalist in that sense.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't show up to their booth, you know, telling them how terrible they are, well, crap, even if you did, and as long as you're handing them $20 for a print, they don't care.
Does it strike you as, so these are the Artist Alley individuals that you're thinking?
Artist Alley, small press.
Yeah. So does it strike you as odd when you have heard of or read the things on Twitter with the "I don't want your damn money, you and everyone who thinks like you" kind of thing? It's certainly come up a lot.
I think just like the bad actors that are on the Comicsgate side, I think that it's just bad actors on the other side. And I think it's a very limited group of people, because I just don't see it. And to say that, oh well, you know, you're at a con where it's, you know, nothing but, you know, far left people. No, there were, off the top of my head, I can count at least 3-4 booths in the small press area that I would say were probably far right religious comic books.
Yeah.
And I bought them because I'm like, hell, I want to see what this is about. So yeah, I think for the most part, I think most people just don't care. Just buy. If you want to buy it, buy it. If you don't.
Yeah.
Other than that, just shut up.
What I think might be an interesting sort of what I wouldn't give to be a fly on the wall sort of thing, right? is to be able to really parse the numbers, because I think such a thing might be a bit too laborious of an endeavor. Would be to think of the people that are the most vocal about the "I don't want your damn money," sort of thing on Twitter and whatever social media they have. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Sort of mentality when talking to their customers. What I wouldn't give to be a fly on the wall for all the people that are saying, it doesn't matter to me what you think. I just want you to be interested in my comic, try it, and if you like it, come back for more. See how many people, if they've got relatively the same following on social media, see how many people they would attract at a comic convention, of people wanting to interact with them, wanting their autograph, wanting to buy their books, so on and so forth, versus the people that have around the same following that say, I don't want your damn money, fucking Nazis, all these sorts of people. See how many people they attract, because I don't think that that sort of data is really available. But I think it would be fairly interesting, and I think that would be kind of the point to make. It's if you sit there and you tell people, I don't want your money, fucking Nazis, all that kind of stuff, are you attracting people to spend money at your booth? And I would venture a guess that most of the people that are pushing back against it are the ones that are sitting there saying, well, I used to like your books, but I don't anymore.
And yes, but I think that's a small number of people compared to the rest of them.
Well, okay, you know what, Jim? I disagree with you, but I don't.
Okay.
I agree with everything you said, but I would add, like, is it a small number of people? Yes. And I know people hate when I do this, but I'm going to liken this to my own life. I know what it's like on a major research university campus. It is a small number of people that are SJWs, but they have two things going for them. One, they're in admin, in administration or board director positions, or the board of chancellors positions. There's not many of them there, but okay, but they are there, some of them. And then the second thing they got going for them, they have the trump card, no pun intended. It's, are you not down with diversity? Do you have a problem with POCs? And everybody shuts up. It's, nobody wants to push a social justice requirement for all undergrads, much less two social justice requirements for all undergrads, but they all go along with it. Why? And the answer is, I think, is obvious and sort of rhetorical question. You have to liken that loosely to what's going on at, let's say, Marvel, because they're the perennial target for this stuff. Sana Amanat. I mean, she wants to reposition Marvel as a lifestyle brand, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. She's a remarkably powerful person. I agree with you. There's not many of them there, but with the few of them there, and the fact that they have a powerful trump card, and the fact they're willing to be extremely vocal and zealous about their beliefs, they've managed to get a lot done. Look at the replaced characters so far, and who's going to say no? And I can absolutely understand. You're an artist. Food, shelter costs money. Car bills cost money.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you going to pencil Ironheart? Of course I am. Are you going to pencil female Thor? Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, why not?
This stuff comes down the pipe at you, and you go along with it, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And really, it's just, you're just making money.
Yeah.
I mean, for most of these people, I think that the political ideology doesn't matter.
And see, that's one thing that always comes to mind whenever any of this sort of stuff comes up. I mean, yeah, the artists and the writers, they make their money, right? They get paid on a commission. They turn in their commission. They get their money. The editors, they're employed. They're in a salary. They can do their job. They make money. The problem is that all of this is like expenses or overhead, right? So when the book actually goes out to make money, it needs to sell. And with the sort of figures that now, of course, again, we only see the diamond sales, but that's okay because the diamond sales are actually, you know, indicative of what the company is making, not what the shops that are selling are making. That's
what the company's shipping, just to be a
again,
yeah.
Well, it's selling too because they're selling it to businesses that will then sell it, you know, in retail. They're selling it wholesale for the retailer to retail it. If you get what I mean. So it is technically sales. So it is money that the parent company is making. Why in the blueberry fuck have the higher ups at Marvel not sit there and gone, okay, our expense report says that we are spending this much money on the artists, this much money on the writers, this much money on the editors, this much money on the letterers, colorists, inkers, all that, blah blah blah. All this is expensed. How much did we make in sales? That little.
I think you're already seeing it with the quality of artists that they're getting in the last year.
People that can't demand the same kind of tracks. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's not to say that these people are bad artists. I'm just saying that, like you said, they don't demand the same pay that others do. And so that's why you'll get artists in for 3 books and then they're gone. Or you'll get a writer that they'll buy a story arc from them and then they're moved off to something else. Because when you get yourself established is when you can start demanding more money. And if they don't let you get established, well, they can still they can still pay a penciler $100 a page.
When I don't think that this is a possibility, but like, let's go into hypothetical world for a second. Over on Rakita Law's channel, Van Sciver was having a debate with the webcomic guy. What's his name? I forget. He was actually in a different form. Like if he had like a Xanax before the debate, he might have actually had some salient points. They were just delivered in such a hostile, angry way. He was talking about different cliques, however you want to say it, inside a comicsgate. He's not wrong. And he was talking about like Vox Day made it look ugly. He's not wrong. And the fact that Ethan Van Sciver has any kind of association with Vox Day it's not a good look. I hear you. Like, you know what I mean? And he's what alternative model are you supposing? Because really you're just talking about indie comics and Indiegogo, and you've used this as a viral marketing campaign. Nothing he was saying was particularly wrong, but he was ignoring and giving lip service to the idea that like the politics have become a little heavy-handed. But all of this was said in an extremely hostile "fuck you guys" kind of way. So it came across as harsh, and I'm thinking, you right? In listening to the whole thing, I'm thinking, you know what? The message still hasn't gotten through to the people that are producing these comics. I think the smartest thing that was said is that Marvel Comics for Disney at this point is an IP farm. Yeah. Just to hold possession of the characters. And it's like, why don't they care? They do care. And what they wanted to achieve, they have achieved in this, that they own those IPs to a greater or lesser degree to be able to produce films or everything else. Like that's what they're doing. They're purchasing products or purchasing intellectual properties. And they've done that. It doesn't really matter if it's operating at a loss. Alphabet owns Google, which owns YouTube, and YouTube's continuing to operate at a loss. You don't see Alphabet forcing them to sell it off. Of course not, because it's a big thing that allows us to do it's worthwhile, even if it's running in the red.
It's a loss leader. They lose money in one area to make money in another, and it's tax write-off. One thing that, and this is where we enter into hypothetical land. One thing that Van Sciver suggested was a return policy with Diamond. And I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen. I can just see 100 reasons why that wouldn't work, like across the board return policy. They do that with the newsstand books. If the book didn't sell, they'd send it back and get credit.
Now, Jack, you used to run a comic book store. Jim, you got some ideas on this, and Inquisitor, you're always full of opinions. Do you think that would be crippling, like that would be like a deathly blow, as it were, or at least a mortal wound, as it were, because it seems like it would to me if comics were being shipped back that were unsellable.
It's one of the things that killed cross-gen, because they were doing that with their trade paperbacks too, and they got a whole bunch of them returned at once, and it cost them all their available cash.
Is that the story with cross-gen? What happened? Like that's
that's an aspect of it.
Okay.
They also were not doing things well financially. They were kind of wasting a lot of money, but they got hit with a lot of returns within like I think it was a 3-month span, and it bled them dry because all these bookstores like Walden Books, Borders, etc., sent a bunch of stuff back. But the way they do at the big bookstores is they would wait and just send it all back at once instead of like a little bit here and there.
Yeah, they don't do returns on a monthly basis. They do them quarterly.
Yeah, and they got completely butt pounded by that in a very unpleasant prison way. And it really hurt CrossGen financially, and that's when they couldn't pay their artists and writers, and that's when everything kind of fell apart for them. So it can be crippling. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I don't think that I don't think that returnables are, I don't know, it would have to be done in a very smart way. So like they ship out the books and they say, okay, you should leave this book on your shelf until this date, and then from this date you have 30 days to return it. If it doesn't sell after that, it's yours. You keep it.
Yeah, that's what they used to do with the newsstand stuff. If you notice in your old comics at the top, there's a colored bar. There was a chart that they would give you when you would sign up for your newsstand. And those colored bars were, okay, you look at your chart and say, all right, it's February, this color gets sent back. And if you didn't send it back within that, I think it was a 2-week time span, you kept it, and screw you.
And they used to say a month and a year on the books too. And that was supposed to be the display month.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the 2-month delay on the books.
And at the end of that month, you could return it. And if you didn't return it, it was yours. You kept it.
Yep. And I think that would work with if you were producing books like Alterna does, where it's only $1.50 or $2. I think they would have enough diversity of books that are selling that they could compensate for that. But at $4 a crack, you can't get hit with that many returns. It's just not realistic. It costs way too much money.
What do you think the effect on the industry would be there, Jim? Like the would that be a move the needle moment where it's like, we can't do this, it's just not sustainable, or it would work its way out somehow?
You'd see a real strict tightening of the belt at the big two.
That's what I was.
I think Marvel wouldn't be producing 57 titles monthly anymore.
Right? Yeah, you'd probably see you'd probably see titles cut. You'd see a lot of people out of work. Because they wouldn't be able to do it anymore.
I completely agree.
At least until things balanced out.
The problem is that you don't know how they're going to let people go. Is it going to be based on merit, or is it going to be based on favorites, political favors, that sort of thing? Who's liked in the office?
To be based on favorites, and that's not because it's Marvel and DC. That's just how things work.
Yeah, we talked about that the first time you're on. The like-mindedness of the group. It's very human in institutions to be like that.
It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that. Sorry to cut you off. I think that it could work. It's just not set up for it now, and it would be. They would have to do it in stages. Like, all right, all our kids' books are returnable for 20 days, or start with 2 weeks and then go to 30 days or whatever, and then slowly build up to it where it's all the titles. But I think that they could experiment with it with like an imprint, like, oh, all our Vertigo books are returnable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that with Vertigo. That would end very poorly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off with laughter, but that was it.
But I mean, they used to have a lot more imprints. You had New Universe, you had Star, you had Impact.
Sure.
You know,
Marvel the whole
Marvel Knights. You know, if they did it with one specific subset, and even make like some of the titles exclusive to comic shops, they used to do that. Like Moon Knight used to be exclusive to comic shops, and you couldn't get it on the newsstand, so you had to go to a comic shop and make those not returnable. Then I think that maybe they could test the waters on that, but I don't think they could do it with every title unless the prices were way lower.
Well, and they can manipulate credits on the back end so that the financial impact doesn't hit them as hard all at once.
Yeah.
You know, they could say, okay, well, you know, stores, you'll get your credits. Or you'll get an invoice credit after 60 days, and your invoice credits are limited to X number of dollars per invoice, so that it's not a financial blow, you know, every time.
Yeah.
And so you'll see some stores will loosen up their ordering a little bit, and some stores will tighten up their ordering a little bit. You know, so it can happen, but like you said, you can't just flip the switch and have it happen all at once.
No,
they would have.
I mean, should that be? Because like this guy got me thinking. I was drinking at the time, and I'm kind of like listening through this webcomics guy's debate over there on Rakita Law. I'm going to post
Jason
that.
Youngbluth.
That's right, Youngbluth, because Rakita had a big difficulty saying it, Youngbluth. That's right.
Yeah,
through all of his nuttery,
Youngbluth.
Yeah, through all of his hostility and anger, he managed to come up with a number of salient points. And I thought Van Sciver did a pretty good job of addressing them. Kind of like he should have done a better job of keeping them on track. He made too big of a deal of Vox Day. Number one, I thought Youngbluth did. And then secondarily, he made way too big of a point of the interaction between Van Sciver and what's his name on Twitter? I'm blanking out here, guys. Help me out.
I don't remember. I don't follow.
Drew Spider-Man for a long time. He's now the CCO at Marvel, the chief creative officer.
Brevoort?
Cebulski? No, Brevoort.
No.
No?
Caseta?
Caseta. Thank you, Joe Caseta.
Casada. Yeah.
Tacarito, whatever. There's a debate going on in chat. If you want to weigh in, Jim, if whether or not a taco needs a hard shell, feel free to weigh in on that.
Oh God, just ignore that. Move on.
Quesadillas are Mexican grilled cheese sandwiches.
Okay, whatever.
There's better than grilled cheese
Leave it alone,
sandwiches. What an insult to quesadillas.
You guys are hilarious. I can't believe you're arguing about that in chat. Still, every time I'm on a fucking stream, that comes up. Anyway, between Casada and Van Sciver, where it's like you had the chance to talk to him right here. This was Comicgate's big moment, and you did nothing with it. And were you Youngbluth? Were you even reading those back and forths? He showed up to say, "Do you disavow?" To Van Sciver, do you disavow any association to diversity in comics? Because I've been going around for 3 days straight asking everybody if they disavow this guy. That was not a comicsgate moment. What are you talking about? The guy was out attempting to isolate one guy as the bad actor, and everybody else is on this side, and this guy's on that side. Thus, we've, excised the tumor. We've lanced the boil by getting rid of this guy. It seemed that way. I don't understand how you thought that, and he kept bringing that up as a big point. Like that was a Comicsgate fail at that point that you didn't address that with him. And it's like, I don't know, go back and read it. I thought Van Sciver did a good job because he was like, why don't you talk? Zach does not work for me. Why don't you get the people that do work for you with their social media under control and the things that they're doing and saying, because they're whipping up other people to follow them. As a matter of fact, what you're doing right now is whipping up more of this. And it's like, if there's anything creating tribalism, that would be a good example of creating tribalism. It's certainly not the only example of it.
Yeah, and I don't believe that any of the core Comicsgate group are really doing anything. I don't think they're really going out of their way to create tribalism. I don't see anything that they've done that's tried to deliberately create tribalism, but I think it's happening anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I can see that.
So do you think a core message, if you will, message of the movement, I'm doing lots of air quotes here, it's like, write good stories, don't call us Nazis, and institute a return policy?
How about drop the middle one? Because all that says is that you're sensitive to being called names.
Okay.
Write good comics should be it, in my opinion.
Write good comics, which is necessarily linked. Well, you don't think the return policy should be part of it then?
Yes, but I don't think it needs to be a core principle.
Yeah, I mean,
the reason why I would say it would is because everyone, our last thoughts here on comic book curation are always support your local comic book shop, the direct market. This is the way that it's done. Where I'm not trying to keep a legacy enterprise aloft artificially. I'm saying that their process is what is destroying artificially the local comic book shop.
Well, that's because Diamond has a monopoly. I don't think that's necessarily a comicsgate issue. That's a business problem that Marvel alone can't address, or DC alone. It's industry wide. They all have to get together and go for other avenues. There are other avenues to deliver comics.
I am more than willing to have that focus completely on Diamond. That's cool. Like, I'm not saying like, well, pressure that on Marvel because they're not Diamond. Fine, but how are you supposed to know Iceman sucks when they're over shipping Iceman and claiming that gay Iceman's popular as fuck when nobody's buying it and people put pictures up on Twitter of thick stacks on comics?
It's like any other product. You do your research before you buy. I don't go out and buy a car just because it looks pretty. I look on Consumer Reports. I look at reviews.
Speak for yourself.
Well,
I will pick up a comic off the shelf because of the cover.
But
that
impulse shopping is on you then.
Absolutely. It's totally on me.
Yeah, that is a good point, Jim. And comics are a medium that, it kind of is to be judged by the cover. It's kind of a weird way of saying it, but
there's a separate species of cover artists for a reason. Like
Jim also raised a good point there too. Is it all depends on how good the book is, whether or not he's a return customer.
And this is why you see drop offs from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And I think that's a natural progression for a business indicator when it comes to comic sales. What are the stores ordering for issue number 2 and issue number 3? And this is I had this discussion with my LCS today. Last month in previews, Marvel had 12 number 1s. And they were not one-shots. These were number 1s.
Retcon limited editions, limited runs.
They were number 1s of new ongoings, not one-shots.
Well, they claimed them to be ongoings. We'll see.
Well, yeah, okay. But I don't think my shop ordered any of them.
Whew. Yeah, mine didn't. Mine even said that they're going to cut back. My primary shop said they're going to cut back on Marvel because people are going through a fatigue of number 1s. He's getting complaints from customers saying, "I'm sick of this crap," especially when there's $7 or $8 a crack.
There was talking to my LCS today. He was talking about a store that in another area, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but he said that they put out a newsletter for all of the local shops in their area, and they're talking about trends and things like that, about comic shop stuff. And he says they have become the store to follow as far as purchasing trends go. And he says what they've done with Marvel is they have publicly stated, we will buy what's on our pull list and 1 copy for the shelf. And that's it.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
And what my LCS guy was saying is, the problem, or not the problem, the the big purchasers of comics are the new shops that are popping up that think everything is okay. That think
Right.
think because the movies are out that comics are doing great. And so or like one of the shops in my area, holy crap. They easily had 150 copies of Heroes in Crisis on the shelf.
Oh, why?
Because that's what they do. Every book that comes out, they will order like 50 of them.
Yeah, my advice to them would be to start selling weed out of the back, because they're going to go out of business doing that.
No, the theory is that they siphon money off of their gaming store to support the comic side.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, there was a comic shop in my town that was like that. Like the whole back was nothing but tabletop games, and that was always, always had someone in there. Always had people buying stuff, but the comics, no one was there.
So going back to the returns thing, here's another way that you can that they can mitigate things. Limit the number of books you can return.
Yeah.
Well, because you go to a store like this local that bought that I think they easily bought 400 plus copies of Heroes in Crisis.
See, that's a good way to I'm going to kind of interrupt you here because I want to make this point.
Yeah,
but the retailer incentive covers would be the ideal way to do that. Like, okay, you can send 20 back, but if you buy 25, you get this special retailer incentive cover. And if you buy 50, you get this extra special rare boss, blah, blah, blah.
You still do the 1 in 25, 1 in 100, 1 in 200 covers, but then you tell these people you can only return 30.
Do they actually do that though? I mean, every single place that I've been to for alternate covers, they have exactly the same numbers of all of the covers.
No, there's a way they're doing it now where you can order certain. Okay, so we have A and B covers. You can order those in equal parity, but C is a retailer incentive, so you have to buy 25. Then D is 50, and E is 150.
And so for every 50 that you buy of A or B, you can get one of C.
Well, the reason why I say that though is because I've got a buddy that he pretty much only collects the Flash. I think the other thing he has on pull is Black Panther. But one thing that he said for his comic shop that he's collecting all this stuff from is that for all of his pulls for the Flash, he wants every single alternate cover, every single one of them. And to my knowledge, he hasn't been shortchanged one.
He's not getting all of them.
Really?
He's either not getting all of them, or they're ordering a whole bunch more than,
or the store especially, or the store special ordering. Yeah.
Especially if he's willing to pay a jacked up price for it, they'll do it just to sell it to him at an exorbitant cost.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way, dude. Every single time, or like every month, spends well over $500.
Yeah, they're doing it just to satisfy his needs. Then,
like we'll look at this. Like this Heroes in Crisis cover F was a 1 in 200 incentive cover, and it's $250 if you want it.
So yeah, and some places, depending on your region, how many shops there are, they're going to ask for more.
Yeah,
so they might get $300. That's going to cover most of their order because they're buying them at 50 to 60% off at that.
Wait,
with that volume.
The comic, it's a brand new comic that's selling for over $200.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is who actually buys that? Like, okay, I was
surprised.
Seriously, so if it, I can just tell you this: if you're buying a new release comic that is a incentive cover, you can pretty much take whatever the incentive number was. So 1 in 50, 1 in 100, 1 in 200, and that second number is what they're going to sell the comic for.
Yep, and they'll make their money back just on that.
Yeah,
because if you're ordering that level of volume, you're most likely getting 50 to 60% off cover price. So that drops the price of your sale down quite a bit. You only need to cover half of the cover for all of those issues. So you sell all the incentive covers at massively jacked up prices, covers everything you bought, and probably made you a little bit of a cushion. And then anything you sell on top of that from to the normies is all gravy. Even if you get a quarter a piece, doesn't matter. That's how I used to do it.
As a quick side note, Ranting Monkey is pressuring me with my poor abilities at promotion. And if you're liking this right now, by all means, backhand that like button. Because I know there's 12 people watching. We've only got 5 likes.
Do it.
Do it. I keep saying I'm letting dignity get in my way, and it's like, you got to get over your dignity problems, Polly. You got to promote yourself, damn it.
I did my part. I disliked it.
Well, that's something. Thank you, Quiz.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I knew disliking everyone's streams would eventually bite me in my karmic butt. Like, it's interaction, but when you're on the other side, it hurts. Damn it, it hurts.
So the one thing that I was like, because all of this is just it's such an anathema to me. Yeah, I know I collect comics too, and I collect them not purely because of speculation, but you know, I'm somewhat proud to look up on eBay or Amazon to say, you know, how much does the whole Dodson collection of Harley Quinn go for? You know, Harley Quinn volume 1, because I have every single floppy issue of that. I have every single rag issue of that series. And like saying it, hey, it's sold on eBay for $700. I'm like, well, man, I paid cover price for those. That's equally, very easily worth way more than what I paid for it, which is great, right? But it's stuff like this. It's like, that's early 2000s, and then you got this early 2000 right here. I was shocked to find out that one of the highest selling comic books in recent years was October 2003 was when that issue was published. Walking Dead #1.
Mm-hmm.
Guess how much it sold for?
What, $1,000? $2,000?
$10,000.
Yeah, I believe that.
People are retarded. I used to have a guy that
I tried selling off my Amazing Spider-Man run.
Huh?
Did I ever tell you about the time I tried selling off my Amazing Spider-Man run?
No.
It's not complete, obviously, but it was hefty, and it was up to the current issue at the time. This is like years ago, and it was a stupid move, and I didn't end up doing it. But I'll tell you why. Because I walk in with a long box, which wasn't all of them. It was just a significant. It was where there was a complete sequential run in the issues, and I said, I have my run of Amazing Spider-Man here, blah, 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 and I'd like to sell it. And it goes, I mean, I think the lowest one I had was like a 23 or 24, issue number 23 or 24 at the time. And then there's some spots, and you know how it is, right? And then it's picked up at one point and then ran sequentially. And he's like, well, what's the quality of them? And he looked at them, and he went through all the poly bag, because they're all poly bagged, and goes through them, pulls out $298, $299, and $300, and says, I'll buy these. Yep. The first, second, and third issue that Todd McFarlane drew.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how much space buying collections takes up in your back room?
No, I understand, but it was I was like, I'm not letting you pull out $298, $299, $300.
Yeah,
because I'm not an idiot. I know why you want them. So there's this gap that would be really expensive to fill back in, and I don't know. It's just one of those icy moments of reality of like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is like, keep it or use them as kindling, but selling them off, you're going to regret this one way or another. Like, just leave, man. Go get a job if you want money. What are you doing? So I left with my comics and still have
I used to buy collections pretty regular, and most people would walk out with an average of 3 cents per book. That's how much I would pay them, because they only ever had a handful of good issues, and I would have a ton of dead product. I have no way of describing what owning 2 long boxes of Brigade #1 is like.
I'll tell you what, though, it's cheaper than firewood.
Yeah, I did end up. I gave a bunch of them out for Halloween, and kids were like, "Really?" I'd be like, "Take 3 comics, but you have to take one of these."
Really,
no,
if you,
thank
if
you,
you
sir.
if you roll them up really tight and tie them with string, they make wonderful logs.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah,
Like that
it
ink
destroy
doesn't let off
too.
toxic fumes or anything?
Oh, well,
probably
you
by
know.
association. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never tried burning comic books as a log. I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
It's like burning newspaper.
I'm really not being serious, but
Okay.
I would do it.
You gotta work on your sarcastic voice, Jim. I was like, really? Would that work? Like,
See, then the sarcasm worked.
I gave out half a box of initial issue of Dazzler where she fought Terrax to a pizza delivery guy as a tip. I was like, here's a bunch of comics. He's like, sweet. I didn't tell him they were all Dazzler.
Hey, now I'd take Dazzler.
where did that
Right?
happen? Like, was this after he was a herald?
What?
I don't remember. It was.
Are we talking about Terrax the Destroyer?
Yeah. Hold
After
on,
he was this
I'll
after
look
he was
it
a
up.
herald of Galactus and had the power cosmic? Like, I'm just
before
trying to
she
place it.
before she fought Galactus. Yeah.
Huh? Why did you have so many of them?
I bought a collection.
And the person had multiples?
Oh yeah, yeah. It happens more than you think. Speculators, especially, will buy big stacks of an issue they think is going to be worth a fortune.
Weird.
Yeah, it's
my-
Dazzler
my-
number 11.
That's the
My
reason why so many-
multiples are rare, like in my collection, except for that damn X-Men Volume 2 number 1. I bought all the variant covers, and
I was say there's a
Sucker.
reason why everyone has an issue number 1. Everyone has it. What you've really got to look for is you've got to look for those like rare, like first appearance and stuff like that in random little bits throughout, a run.
Yeah, see, when I was a kid, we used to be able to buy Silver Age books for $1 at the flea market.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
see, okay, I didn't realize you meant like this old. Like, there's even one of them old school like ad for a bike giveaway at the top.
Oh,
of the
yeah.
comic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'd be amazed at the random stuff you'd get in collections. Like I'd get the occasional pulp novel, stuff like that. Just weird things that people would acquire through various means, But,
Okay, gentlemen, we're
but-
running up on an hour and a half, which I told our audience we would not do.
Whatever.
But it's Jim Healis's fault. Blame him.
It is. It's my fault. Totally.
He's available at Jim Healis on Twitter. I put his link in the description. Feel free to venture rage.
That is my personal account, so just be warned.
Is it? Did I screw up
It
and
is.
post your personal account? I can post your. What is it?
At Blue Mamba Comic is
Okay,
if you want to follow the comic
I'll
stuff.
change that over. But what, Jim? If you want to stick around, we are going to go pretty rapid fire, I would think, guys, through our comic book pitches as we try and convince each other to read comics.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to bow out. I
Sure.
need to be up at about 6 hours for work.
Oh, fair
dude,
enough.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you very much for having me on, guys. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you for coming by. I appreciate your
Great
thoughts.
to have you.
Yep. Talk to you guys later. Cheers.
Have a good night, Jim.
Bye.
So,
I like having him on. He's nice.
yeah,
He's a great guy.
he makes us be more reasonable in our opinions. I think we're not,
It's
Whatever.
easy.
fuck 'em all, fuck 'em, like we don't end up doing that when he's here.
It's easy to be negative. Jim helps us be a little bit more positive.
Yeah, well, and
Maybe you
measure-
too.
Yeah. Okay, who wants to go first? And that's you, Jack.
Okay. Let me turn my sharing back on. All right. So I actually did a review on this today. And this is a swashbuckling book. This is Zorro, Swords of Hell, issue 1 from American Mythology Productions. And I'm thinking, it sounds kind of cheesy. Zorro, really? No. So see the art here? All right, there's Don Diego, La Vega, and then undead soldiers, conquistador types coming up from the ground. Check that out. And he actually has to fight zombies. And it's awesome.
It does sound pretty cool.
Right? Like when you're thinking undead legions, you're not thinking of Zorro.
Yeah.
So it was actually a lot of fun. And they put his face in shadows quite a bit when he's in the gear, which was really cool. I like that quite a bit. It was just such an interesting premise, and it ends on a really cool cliffhanger, which I'm not going to show you. But it was just such a fun book. I haven't had that much fun reading a comic that was actually supposed to be an action adventure in a super long time, and it's way better than anything at Marvel. And American Mythology is quickly becoming a great company to me because they keep producing, like, they produce fun books. They may not be the greatest and deepest, most intellectual, but they do kids' books. They do like Casper and a bunch of other those cartoon stuff from like the Harvey line from the 70s and 80s. Mm-hmm. So they got Hot Stuff and Wendy the Witch and Casper. But they also have the Zorro license and a bunch of the Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. And this book was incredibly impressive. I had a lot of fun reading it. I'd never heard of David Avallone, the writer, but he did a great job. And the cover art was really well done. The interior art's pretty solid, I thought. So I'm very happy with it.
Nice.
You should read it. Go buy it. Support good comics.
That does look pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
As a quick little side note, support good comics. I agree, and I understand the idea of, look, I've been collecting whatever for a long time, and I don't want a big break in my run. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to have a missing 30 issues because some writer that I can't stand is coming on and is going to ruin it. Mark Waid.
Max Bemis.
These things, things can go horribly wrong. I'll remind you, there's nothing wrong with stopping, picking up the issues, and then buying them as back issues for cheap later. Am I the only one that's clued into this?
No. I won't do that for some people. Some people have burned that bridge with me, and Max Bemis is one.
Because I couldn't accept not having my sequential run of Amazing have big spaces in it. But I stopped buying Clone Saga, and then I bought them all later on as used editions, and I got them for cheap. So
I used to be a completionist where I had to have them all, and then I had 100,000 comics, and it took up an entire freaking room. So I had to do something about that.
There's not certain series where you, I want, this one series is my little pet series, and I'm not willing to be without certain issues.
I sold all of my comics except for 15 books.
Okay, so
that was it.
I want the chat to weigh in on something here.
Yes, they can have soft shells. Fuck.
Everyone listening, present and future. Jack here from Bad Comics Reviews. Brody from Mallrats. I think so. he's got the vault there. It says, the standard vault rules apply. Touch not, lest ye be touched.
Yeah, that was a big deal for me too. Like, don't fuck with my comics. And when I had to move, it was a nightmare moving that many books. And I was like, all right, I gotta change some stuff. And I eventually toned it down and stopped buying a bunch of like solid runs, and I eventually just sold them all. It just became too much of a hassle. But yeah, man, I don't think that you should just blindly buy a series. I think you should find the ones that you really like and buy those. So I would agree with that.
All right, Quiz, what do you got for us?
I've got an indie comic that's still in production, but the first chapter is available online. I've got it's a script, art, design, and letters by J.L. Giles. I think that's how his name is pronounced. And script by A. Kles and associate editor G. Del Trez. The book I'm pitching today is H.P. Lovecraft's Herbert West Reanimator.
Oh, nice.
Like I said, it's currently it's currently in production. But the first chapter is available right now to read for free if you'd like, or to tip the Giles when downloading it. But eventually it will be compiled into a graphic novel, and I think it looks amazing. Giles is an amazing artist, and if you are into Lovecraft at all, you will dig this. If you've into Reanimator at all, it's a fairly cult classic sort of story. It's been retold several times. I dug this book. It's great.
But why do we want to read it?
Oh, if you're into Lovecraft, if you're into sort of horror, spooky mystery sort of thing, it takes
Right?
place in Arkham, Massachusetts. I
Nice.
can just show some of the art here. It's very much. The thing about it is Lovecraft is like one of those things where people in the know will know if they like Lovecraft or not. And people on the fence, this is the sort of thing that will get you into the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft.
Well, now there's the thing. People have heard of Lovecraft, and Lovecraftian is even a phrase to describe things of. Do you think that this captures well the Lovecraftian thing?
Yes, very much so. There's a level of the slow descent into madness from the human condition, all told within, God, I think it's like 17 pages here for the first chapter. It's incredible. It's all about Herbert West here making this serum to bring the dead back to life, and people telling him that he's a madman and he needs to be stopped, and his experiments are going too far and they're unethical. But then he goes and does it anyway, and then what resurrects is this horrible monster they have to run from and burn the house down to try and avoid. It's very, very well told horror.
Any chance you could throw the link to that in the chat?
Absolutely. Give me one quick second. Now's your time to pitch, Polly.
Oh, well, I was just waiting for him to throw it up. Okay. Turn you off presenting. As anybody who's been listening for the past little bit, and it is Miller Month as we celebrate the wonderful genius of the comic brilliance of Frank Miller. Inquisitor is slowly coming around. He's buying all kinds of Frank Miller comics and has been DMing me on the side how he's becoming convinced how awesome Frank Miller is. It's okay, Quiz. It's for those of you,
listen to that. He's even orgasming just from the name.
I know. Today, I went all out because I actually read this over again, and it's kind of an obvious suggestion, but at the same time, you can't talk about Frank Miller without talking about this. Let me make sure I got the right screen here.
Daredevil. Wolverine.
Daredevil. The Man Without Fear. John Romita Jr. Does the art on this, and it is legendary. This is what changed Daredevil from a, yellow suited swashbuckler into a dark, gritty hero, kind of like what he was from that moment on, until fucking Mark Waid got his hands on him. This is this is a retelling of his origin story, which was kind of told, but it was known before. But then Miller gets involved and applies his sort of touch to it, his noir-esque touch, if you will. And there's Matt Murdock as a young man holding his dead father. I won't pain people with the story because it's kind of like, if you know the story of Daredevil's origin, it's kind of like old news. It's just done so well. Here's the old man crossing the street. Matt Murdock jumps. Radioactive waste spills into his eyes. It's not so much the story, it's how Miller builds the story and tells it bit for bit. You either you're going to love Miller's narration or you're not, because it's such a particular flavor. The radioactive material splashes into his eyes, and this page gives you a great example of how Miller plots the art of a comic, and Romita picks up on it and narrates it just perfectly. Yes, it courses through his blood, it changes him. His blood, it burns, it gushes through with high pressure hoses and slams against the base of his skull. Everything's hurts. He doesn't know where he is. Like, it just it paints a mental image that you can read it without even looking at it, and you can still visualize what's happening. Miller's a very gifted storyteller. He's very good at what he does, but he doesn't die. He has to make do. After a while, he shuts it out. What's happened to him? What has he become? Dad doesn't understand. Nobody understands except the woman, the stranger who comes, doesn't know who she is. Well, of course, she's a nun. Everyone can see that. She soothes him. Like, it's just, it's a very dark story. And you know, here's this blind kid in Hell's Kitchen in New York City, gets picked up by this guy named the Stick, who kind of notices him as a fellow blind person who is having pity put upon him and is going to get lost if he doesn't. And he decides to train him, and not in a nice way, in a way, quit feeling sorry for yourself, get up. He follows him to his gym routine, and he can't do what he loved to do anymore because he can't see. Well, he trains him to do it all without having to see. And this is the beginning of Daredevil becoming the self-sufficient powerhouse that he becomes. Fantastically told, excellent. It is one of the quintessential works in superhero comics, in my opinion. Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. It's been collected a number of times. Can't recommend it enough. And yeah, a great entry for Miller Month for sure.
Yeah, I've heard that that is one of the better Daredevil stories, and that if I were to read any Daredevil stories, to read Miller's run on Daredevil. So
I'm pretty sure that's a commitment to purchase right there. That's what I just heard. I heard he's going to buy it for sure now. Now he's obligated from, you know, a social contracts sense.
You know, I've never been a fan of Daredevil.
Well, no, I mean, and that being the case, reading The Man Without Fear will let you know if there's anything in the character for you at all.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you can know a character from afar. He shows up, he crosses over, you see him on covers in your comic book shop. I don't know, he's kind of a guy who runs around in a red suit. He's a blind lawyer, big deal. Like, well, of course, there's a lot more depth to it than that. Is there anything in Daredevil worth checking out? The Man Without Fear will tell you. Either there is or there isn't. You'll know by reading that.
Yeah,
definitely. Before we go, I just want to point out one thing. When Jim was talking, Blue Mamba is not only a comic, but he also has a merch store. I want to get some of this merch, man. I'm just looking at it right now, and there we go. I want this shirt.
Well, goodbye, all ratings.
What? There's shadows covering all of the things.
Naughty bits.
No,
yeah,
well, kind of, but okay.
What?
I mean, I'm not saying no, but you know.
I mean, see, this is not covering all the naughty bits, so therefore there's a black bar covering the butt.
All right.
Come on, you want to buy this shirt and wear it to work, don't you, Quiz?
Oh, well, I want to buy the shirt, yes. I probably wouldn't wear it to work. Because I still need my job. I need to get out of debt.
In any case, yeah, I'm going to post the link if anyone else is interested, because I definitely want one of those shirts. Why not? And so,
well,
that wraps up
in description. Don't forget the description.
Oh, I already put it in the description, but there it is in chat for anyone who's interested if you want to check it out in higher res detail. We had a number of things that we were going to talk about last week that I said, like, Jack, let me get back to you with Batman as a... Jack seems to think Batman's a pederast, which I disagree with.
No, I don't. I said
well,
the
I
exact
think
opposite.
that you do. And
you were the one that said he was a pederast. But
no. I said he wasn't. And you guys are describing him like he is.
You were describing him as a cult leader.
I was describing him as a man who had suffered trauma as a child and was reliving it out. That's not a cult leader.
You were the one that described him as a pederast, and you were saying that Frank Miller in The Dark Knight turned him into, or no, not even in Dark Knight, in his run on Batman before Dark Knight Returns, was a way to get him away from the pederasty. That is exactly what you
have
said.
Got to stop painting and surfing tentacle hentai when we're streaming, man, because that wasn't even close to what I said.
That was exactly what you said.
I'm pretty sure you said that Batman was actually Mike Pence and he wanted to electrocute people. That's how I recall that conversation.
Why do all the black characters have electrical powers? I actually read that. I'll find that for our Friday show. That's what you were alluding to, right?
So beyond
Yep.
correcting the record on these guys' patently faulty memory of our last stream, we're going to go over that issue because Jack wanted me to read this comic book about Dick Grayson facing off against, who was it? Todd? Or
No, he's facing off with Batman.
really? Okay.
Only place of dying, yeah, because it's right after Jason Todd's death.
So I've gotten a copy of that since then, but I haven't had a chance to read it. And plus, I haven't had a chance to read Border Town #2.
You're not missing anything. It's boring.
And neither is Quiz, but Jack has. And that's something I did hear, that it was boring. And yeah, we're going to be all over that. And something else that I can't remember. So we're going to be doing another comic book curation live stream this Friday, same time. 10 Eastern is our hopeful start time as always. But in the meantime, Quiz, any final thoughts?
Comic book conventions, flea markets, all sorts of places where you can find cheap comics and support the hoarders that are trying to get rid of their wares, man. It's the best way to discover new stuff. New old stuff. New old new.
New to you.
Yes, new to you. And fill in those gaps in your collection. It's the best and easiest way to do it. There are tons of places that you can find. Just you gotta, do your due diligence online.
Quiz says take advantage of the mentally ill hoarders. Okay, Jack.
Yes.
Just support the titles that you like and share it around with your friends. Tell people, and support your local comic shop and buy from some small press and give them a try.
And for me, it is collected editions are awesome. Especially used collected editions. There's plenty of them around. Local comic book shops have them in droves, as well as, like Quiz is always saying, flea markets and local conventions and you name it. You can find lots of them. And that way you're buying great stories for the stories at a very reasonable price. Like, Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. Great comic book. Enjoy some Frank Miller today. And with that said,
consult your doctor before continuing use of Frank Miller.
and he's not a sponsor, I swear. And that's it. Thanks, chat, for joining us, and we'll see you again hopefully this Friday. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.